आज तूने वो यारांजे गविले गई मैं हूँ मैं सागांजे गविले गई आज तूने वो यारांजे गविले गई जे गविले गई जे गविले गई जे गविले गई जे गविले गई तूने वो यारांजे गविले गई आज तूने वो यारांजे गविले गई
Запись отключишь?
Не надо отключать.
Не надо прерывать. Нет, не надо. Все правильно. Давай, я начинаю. Окей, давай.
Вот Матиас появился.
Добрый вечер, Матиас.
Добрый вечер. Слышите меня?
Прекрасно слышим. Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to see here at least so many names of my good friends and colleagues, and hope to further see their faces as well. So today we continue our series of online lectures dedicated to the 25th anniversary of Iran and the Caucasus. And our today's guest and lecturer is Matthias Weinreich, Dr. Matthias Weinreich, who will speak on modern languages on ancient roads, ethno-linguistic diversity in northern Pakistan. This is a fascinating subject, and what makes this lecture even more precious is that Matthias himself worked in the area for a certain period of time, and a big portion of what he will say, he will talk about, is also his field materials. So shall we start, I think?
Yes, if this question is... Hello?
I would like to particularly stress that Matthias Weinreich is part of the Iran and the Caucasus project from the very beginning, and we cannot imagine the journal without him. And so it's a particular pleasure and honor for us to have him as today's lecturer. Dr. Weinreich, I'm giving you the floor.
Thank you very much, Victoria. I'm still trying to switch on my camera. Is it on?
We can see...
switch on and off. It's in the moment is off. I'm switching it on and then it's off again.
I think it's a problem of your computer only because...
Okay. Well, okay, we can start without me. It's not so important you see me.
I'm sorry. Sorry. I guess, Matthias, you should stop the slideshow.
Yes.
Stop sharing your screen. And after this,
I stopped sharing my screen. Okay.
Open the camera.
Yes. Okay, stop sharing. I open my camera. Can you see me?
No.
No.
Let me try again. No, it's all the time on and off, but I stopped sharing. Okay, it's not so important. I mean, you hear my voice. That's the important thing.
And we
right?
saw you at the moment, I think.
Yeah. You see me obviously one time. You see me one time, and then the camera switches off again automatically. I don't know for what reason. I was never a friend of this modern technology, so it seems to take its revenge with me. Who knows? Okay. Anyway, let's start. Cinnabar, you have the first picture, right? Yes, excellent.
Right.
Yes, so I will read the presentation, and I will ask Zinovar. She is kindly switching the pictures because I somehow guessed that I will have problem with the electronic machine. So Zinovar is helping me greatly out. Thank you very much for this, Zinovar. I appreciate this very much. As Garnik already mentioned, and Victoria, yes, I'm part since more than 20 years now of the Iran and Caucasus project. I'm very proud of this. I am very happy with that. I would like to thank everybody who is involved in it. And I would also like to invite colleagues who are not involved yet with it to participate in our project. 25 years, that's a long time. The presentation is dedicated to this time, and it is dedicated also to another 25 years. Yeah, long live Iran Caucasus. So let me start, please. I'm trying a last time my screen. No, it's switching off all the time. Okay. Anyway, modern languages on ancient roads. Everybody can hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Since the dawn of time, the high mountains of northern Pakistan have served as a major hub for migration and trade. Over thousands of years, the picturesque Karakoram mountain range has been the most direct link between the flourishing cultures of the Tarim Basin and northern India. And up to this very moment, their vast glaciers and icy peaks continue to be the bone of contention between the competing regional powers of Pakistan, India, and China. Zinovar is very kind, but we are still not there. Anyway, eloquent witness to northern Pakistan commercial, religious, and political significance in history bear ancient travelogues, geographic and historical treaties, as well as rock carvings and inscriptions left by invaders, travelers, and merchants at the region's river crossing and intersections of the main roads. But while evidence for the languages, religions, and cultures prevalent in the Karakoram in the past has to be painstakingly extracted from the comparatively few surviving written sources, the area's contemporary cultural setup can easily be observed firsthand and on the spot. In the following lecture, concerned with the languages and peoples of today's northern Pakistan, I would like to take you with me on a short trip to a region which is not only endowed with an extraordinary natural beauty, but also characterized by a situation of ethno-linguistic diversity, unrivaled by any other place located within the limits of the ancient Silk Road. Considering the fact that there are more than 24 languages spoken as mother tongues by communities in northern Pakistan, we would hardly be able to examine even half of them within a reasonable amount of time. Therefore, I would like to limit our journey in space and to focus on Gilgit-Baltistan, one of the region's administrative units and a place where I had the pleasure to work for several years as a university teacher. Zinovar, next picture, please. Next, thank you. Gilgit-Baltistan is situated in the far north of the country. It encompasses a territory of around 72,000 square kilometers, covering the greater part of the Karakoram mountain range, as well as the western fringes of the Himalayas and eastern fringes of the Hindu Kush. Because of its dramatic landscape, dotted with an impressive number of snow-capped mountain peaks, among them the Nanga Parbat, Rakaposhi, and K2, this part of northern Pakistan is often associated with the legendary Roof of the World. Picture, please. Thank you. Internally, Gilgit-Baltistan is divided into 6 administrative subunits: Gilgit, Ghizar, Dyamar, Astor, Skardu, and Ganche. Together, these districts are inhabited by more than 1 million people, with approximately 300,000 of them residing in Gilgit, the region's largest town. The 2 other urban centers are Chilas and Skardu town, headquarters of the Dyamar and Skardu districts respectively. Although urbanization is, as in other regions of Pakistan, an ongoing process, the overwhelming majority of the population is still found in rural areas, in villages and larger settlements scattered or oasis-like across the bottom of the bigger valleys and along the major roads. Picture, please. It is by taking the most important of these roads, the world-famous Karakorum Highway, that I had thought to bring you up to Skardu, the capital of Baltistan. However, due to a landslide, the highway is once again closed to all traffic, and in order to reach our destination in time, we will have to change our plans and take a plane. Picture, please. After a flight of just under 2 hours, passing over parts of the Western Himalayas, we reached Skardu Airport, situated at an altitude of about 2,500 meters above sea level. Picture, please. From the airport, we take the local minibus to Skardu. On the way into town, the road follows the mighty Indus River, which in the Skardu Valley meanders across a wide and sandy landscape. Picture, please. At the town's main bazaar, Mr. Yusuf Hussainabadi is waiting for us. He is a highly regarded local scholar who back in the 1990s translated the Quran into the Balti language and is now engaged in promoting mother tongue education among the youth of Baltistan. Picture, please. Balti, a Western Tibetan language spoken throughout Skardu and Ganj districts, is influenced by the neighboring Dardic language Shina, as well and, like all other vernaculars of northern Pakistan, to a certain extent also by Urdu, the country's lingua franca and main medium of instruction in school. Notwithstanding considerable syntactic and lexical innovations, stimulated by contact with its linguistic surroundings, Balti has preserved a number of archaic features, reminiscent more of classical Tibetan than of the modern variety now spoken in central Tibet. Picture, please. Mr. Hussainabadi informs us that although more than 300,000 people use Balti in their daily communications, it is not taught at any local school. Hello? Can you hear me? Good. It is not taught in any local school. On the one hand, parents prefer their children to read and write in Urdu and English because they perceive Balti as a language of low social value and therefore of little importance for their offspring's life. On the other hand, Mr. Hussainabadi is keen to stress that one cannot seriously hope to raise the prestige of Balti in the eyes of its speakers unless they are provided with a unified alphabet, as clear and as easy to employ as those used for high-status languages like Urdu and English. However, while the creation of such an alphabet comes comparatively easy, agreeing on a standard version of it appears to be a rather challenging task. The problem is that each of the handful of language enthusiasts engaged in the encouragement of Balti literacy is promoting his very own variety of Balti orthography. One of them even arguing in favor of utilizing a modified Tibetan script. In order to finally move forward on this long-standing, highly controversial issue, Mr. Hussainabadi and friends have recently contacted a specialized Islamabad-based NGO, which is not only expected to reconcile the differing opinions on the script, but also to design teaching material for Balti lessons at primary school level, following a methodology already successfully employed with other minority languages of northern Pakistan. One can only hope that in this way, Mr. Hussainabadi's educational efforts will finally bear fruit and Balti children will soon be able to read and write in their mother tongue. Picture, please. From Skardu, we take the public bus in the direction of the Hunza Valley. Our final destination is Kulmit, a large settlement in Gujal, a high-altitude region spread on both sides of the Hunza River's upper reaches. Although the view from the window does not allow for boredom, the journey seems never-ending. Picture, please. After a trip of 6 hours, we arrive at the confluence of the Indus and the Gilgit River. Picture, please. From there, we are heading north for another 8 hours. First in the direction of Gilgit and then, shortly before reaching the town's outskirts, alongside the roaring Hunza River up into the night, almost until the Pakistani-Chinese international border. Picture, please. One of our co-passengers happens to be a Wahi speaker, a teacher named Didar Ali, who worked in the 1990s as a language consultant for the German Pakistani culture area Karakoram project. He informs us that the ancestors of the Wahis, now settled in northern Pakistan, arrived there during the 18th and 19th centuries from Wakhan, a region in the southeastern Pamirs, situated on both sides of the river Panj. On Pakistani territory, the Wahi language is not only spoken in Gujral, but also in parts of Ishkoman and Yarkhun valleys, the latter located in Chitral, right across the western border of Gilgit-Baltistan. As the term Wahi is of foreign origin, Didar Ali, who is sensitive to all issues connected with his language and culture, prefers to make use of the original self-appellations, referring to himself as Rik and to his language as Rikwar. He proudly quotes the well-known Norwegian linguist Georg Morgensterne, who characterized Wahi as one of the most archaic and at the same time most peculiar of living Iranian languages. Picture, please. Most of the Wahi studies conducted by Morgensterne and other scholars are based on the Wakhan variety. In response to our question if the latter differs from the Wahi spoken in Gujral, we are assured by Didar Ali that he does not experience any difficulty in communicating with his Wakhan brethren, whom he regularly encounters on business trips in neighboring China. His observations are confirmed by the distinguished German scholar Georg Budrus, who established that the dissimilarities between both Wahi varieties are very slight, mostly pertaining to a few morphological and lexical variations. Didar Ali draws our attention to the fact that Wahi oral literature, especially poetry and fairy tales, contains a significant number of Persian words and phrases, many more than can be found in the speaker's everyday language. Referring to Persian, the lingua franca of his ancestors' Pamir homeland, our traveler companion voices his appreciation by calling it a sweet language. This affectionate attitude towards Farsi may also be linked to the fact that all Gujrali Wahis are adherents to the Ismailiya creed, the most prominent texts of which are composed in this idiom. As a teacher, Didar Ali is very concerned that Wahi children are not offered lessons in their mother tongue. Similarly to Mr. Hussein Abadi, he is in contact with the already mentioned Islamabad NGO, but differently from his Balti counterpart, Didar Ali does not entertain any hope of receiving funding for the elaboration of educational material, because the number of Wahi speakers living in the northern areas is comparatively small, estimated to be only 8,000. Picture, please. Thank you. From Gulmit, we move 50 kilometers to the south, towards Karimabad, Hunza Valley's central settlement set in breathtakingly beautiful surroundings. Picture, please. In a coffee shop below the famous Tibetan-style Baltit fort, we are received by Susumu, a Japanese linguist engaged in collecting and translating Burushaski legends and fairy tales. Picture, please. Susumu tells us that the Burushaski language is spoken by more than 90,000 people, not only in central Hunza, but also across the river in Nagar, as well as in remote Yasin, a valley close to the Chitral border. Picture, please. Because of its polysynthetic structure, Burushaski has the reputation for being an extremely complicated language. To illustrate this, Susumu lists some of its salient peculiar features. Burushaski has 5 primary cases and up to 40 different plural morphemes. Some nouns, especially kinship terms and names for body parts, take an obligatory pronominal prefix indicating the possessor. Accordingly, one can't say simply heart, but has to say my heart or his heart or her heart or our heart. The verbal system is more complex still. It is possible to derive hundreds of verb forms from a single root by enlarging it with prefixes, infixes, and suffixes. Moreover, a single inflected verb form only translates as often. Moreover, a single inflected verb form often translates as a complete English sentence. All told, the most vexing problem concerning Burushaski seems to be its relationship with other tongues. Beyond any doubt, Burushaski is an isolated language quite unrelated in origin to its Indo-Aryan, Iranian, and Tibetan neighbors. Moreover, there is still no conclusive evidence relating it to any other known language family. Various theories have been put forward in this regard, but none of them has been generally accepted. Historical connections have been suggested with the Yeniseian, spoken in eastern Siberia, as well as with Munda, Nubian, northern Caucasian languages, and even Proto-Macedonian. Although some striking structural similarities with Basque exist, truly convincing etymological equations are still missing. Asked about local efforts to put Burushaski into writing, Susumu informs us that this issue has been discussed within the local communities since the 1980s. However, until some years ago, it seemed that only a few Burushaski speakers were interested in using their mother tongue in any domain other than oral communication. The situation was further complicated by the fact that the inhabitants of Hunza and Yassin, who are almost exclusively Ismailis, prefer a Latinized alphabet, while the people of Nagar, who are mainstream Shiites, would only support an Urdu-based variety. But recently, and here Susumu smiles, things have taken a new turn, and this is thanks to the internet. Over the last years, a number of local websites have appeared in which young, educated Burushaski speakers from Hunza, Nagar, and Yassin alike discuss all kinds of topics in their mother tongue, using a simplified, non-standardized Latin transcription. This, according to our Japanese friend, gives hope for the future. But teaching Burushaski at school? No, Susumu admits, with only a few parents interested in the education of their children in their mother tongue, this is still a very distant dream. Picture, please. In the evening, we are invited to a wedding party in the neighborhood. At the height of the festivities, men in long woolen cloaks are leaping into the air and whirling around to the tunes of a traditional orchestra. Picture, please. During a break, we are approached by one of these passionate dancers who introduces himself as Shaban Ali Nagri. Answering our question about his mother tongue, he promptly says Burushaski. But when he senses our genuine interest in the subject, he adds somehow shyly, but I also speak Domaki. Like the musicians of the local orchestra who had brought him along as their technical assistant, Shaban Ali belongs to the Hunza Nagar Valley's tiny Doma community. The Doma people are scattered in extended family units among larger host communities in Gilgit-Baltistan and in Indus-Khoistan. Their comparatively low position within society is strongly reminiscent of the humble status occupied by the European and Asian gypsies. Interestingly, the term Dom is connected to the same Indo-Aryan root as the gypsy self-appellation Rom or Lom, although Domaki itself does not show any special affinity with Romani or Lomavren. According to local oral history, the Doma's ancestors came to Hunza and Nagar from Kashmir in separate groups and over an extended period of time. Others claim their forefathers had arrived from Darel or even from Kashgar. Traditionally, Doma were only allowed to work as blacksmiths and musicians, but nowadays they also engage in a variety of other professions. So Shaban Ali, who comes from a well-known blacksmith's family, has been working for many years as car electrician. Picture, please. In almost all places of their present settlement, the Doma have long since given up their original mother tongue in favor of the host languages. Only in Nagar and Hunza valleys has Domaki, in form of two distinct dialects, survived to the present day. Picture, please. From a historical point of view, Domaki is a language of the North Indian plains and therefore affiliated to idioms like Urdu, Punjabi, and Rajasthani. However, due to its intense contacts with other languages, Domaki has lost or transformed many of its original features. This now places the language in a number of important aspects much closer to its Dardic neighbors than to its central New Indo-Aryan cousins. Shaban informs us that the Doma people are typically bi and multilingual. He himself, besides Domaki and Burushaski, also speaks Shena, Urdu, and a little English. Unfortunately, Domaki, which is left with less than 350 speakers, suffers from having a rather low prestige and is perceived by almost all Doma as an obstacle to their way out of a life of poverty and into greater social integration. In this context, it is sad to hear, but at the same time absolutely understandable, that like many other Domaki speakers, Shaban too does not teach his language, does not teach his mother tongue to his children, but instead communicates with them and his wife in Shena. The very limited size of the remaining Domaki speakers community and almost everybody's strongly negative attitude towards the utilization of Domaki in both the public and private domains makes it rather likely that in 1 to 2 generations, Shaban's mother tongue will cease to exist as a living language. So, what about possible alphabetization efforts? Well, when we ask Shaban about it, he gives us a surprised look, shrugs, and replies somehow brusquely. None of our people really likes to speak this language. Why should anybody be interested in writing it? At the end of our short conversation, Shaban invites us to his home for further discussion. But as so often during our trip, we are short of time. So we say goodbye to him and after a short sleep, re-enter the bus. Picture, please. Our next destination is the Yasin Valley, the home, as we already know, of one of the Burushaski dialects. On our way, following the course of the Hunza and Gilgit rivers, we are informed that other idioms spoken by residents of the area include Shena, Kyrgyz, Wakhi Kowar, and Gujri. However, our interest is focused not on these, but rather on Pashto, an Eastern Iranian language spoken predominantly in northwestern Pakistan and Afghanistan. Picture, please. Most of the Pashto speakers living in Gilgit-Baltistan are temporary visitors who come there for seasonal work, mainly trade and construction, keeping their families back home in the Pashtun heartland. Other Pashto speakers have settled on permanent basis, sometimes in connection with marriage into a local family. One of these permanent settlers is Dilawar Khan, a shopkeeper from the village of Taus in Yasin. Picture, please. Dilawar Khan's ancestors arrived in the region at the beginning of the 20th century from Bajaur, a district situated on the Afghan border. Although almost a century has passed since then, our host, as well as his Pashtun wife and children, still retain their original mother tongue, while also being able to speak Shana and Kowar. For most Pashtuns living in Gilgit-Baltistan, speaking Pashto is a question of maintaining their social standing vis-à-vis their local neighbors, as their mother tongue associates them to more than 20 million of Pashtuns in the rest of Pakistan, who enjoy a reputation of being shrewd businessmen and uncompromising warriors. Picture, please. The Pashto language is divided into a number of dialects and sub-varieties. Dilawar Khan tells us that similar to his family, which still speaks the idiom current in Bajaur, also other Pashto speakers, permanent settlers and seasonal workers alike tend to stick to the dialect of their place of origin. As some of these varieties are mutually unintelligible, it can be quite a challenge for Pashto speakers to converse with each other in their common mother tongue, especially since they can't fall back on a widely diffused normative language functioning like, for example, modern Standard English in the contemporary English-speaking context. As a trader, Dilawar Khan travels a great deal. Many of his business partners are Pashto speakers themselves, but by no means does everyone know the same dialect that he does. In order to make themselves understood, Dilawar Khan and his Pashtun conversation partners follow a simple pattern. Each participant in a dialogue uses his own dialect. If the person addressed indicates that he did not understand something the other had said, the speaker provides a synonym or a phrase which is intended to illustrate the meaning of his words. In fact, very often the speaker adds his explanation not just on request, but immediately after a word or statement identified by him as potentially creating difficulties in comprehension. The relevant synonym can be taken from the speaker's native dialect or from any other variety, preferably the one spoken by the conversation partner. The explanatory phrase is normally given in the speaker's dialect. To illustrate his words, Dilawar Khan provides us with a short example in which a shopkeeper from Mardan asks milk from his newly engaged assistant from the Deer Valley. Picture, please. So according to the example, he says, Za, bazar na mata perore, pe, tasuche varta shodeway, tseche chaike ache. Go, bring me pay from the bazaar, pay, what you call shode, what one adds to tea. At the end of our conversation, we asked Dilawar Khan about his and his compatriots' relationship with the written word. Smiling, he responds that although there exists a standardized alphabet and Pashto books and newspapers are freely available in towns like Peshawar and Quetta, few of his family and friends have ever bothered to learn it. The little written exchange that is necessary is normally carried out in Urdu, which seems a perfectly convenient medium for these kind of communications. Picture, please. Our final destination is Gilgit town, Gilgit-Baltistan's administrative capital and the financial heart of the region. Once a sleepy provincial backwater, over the last 4 decades, the town has experienced an unprecedented economic boom, mostly due to revenues generated by cross-border trade with neighboring China. Gilgit's population is divided into almost equal parts into Sunnis, mainstream Shiites, and Ismailia. This religious diversification, combined with a serious imbalance in the distribution of wealth, has created a high level of social tension, which tends to manifest itself in frequent intercommunal violence. Picture, please. The town's social complexity is mirrored by its linguistic situation. A survey conducted in the mid-1990s counted more than 25 languages spoken by Gilgit long-term residents. The town's main medium of communication is Shina, an Indo-Aryan language affiliated to the Dardic group. Shina is also the mother tongue of Mullah Shakil Ahmed Shakil, a local Sunni cleric associated with the Tablighi movement, whom we meet at the central mosque in Gilgit's main bazaar. Following his religious vocation, Mullah Shakil travels all over northern Pakistan, and as he mainly preaches in his mother tongue, he is not only well informed about the geographic distribution of Shina speakers, but also acquainted with some of the language's many dialects. Picture, please. According to Mullah Shakil, Shina is by far the most important idiom of the area, spoken by at least 350,000 people. Besides Gilgit town and surroundings, it is also current in the lower Hunza Valley, in Rizr, Diamar, Astor, and Skardu districts. As might be expected from such a wide distribution within a mountainous environment, the language is fragmented into a number of dialects, the main one being the idiom current in Gilgit, which in and around the town also serves as a lingua franca for a variety of other ethnic linguistic groups, including Wahi, Domaki, and Burushaski speakers. Further Shina dialects include varieties spoken in Baltistan, Astor, and Diamar, as well as in Indus Khoistan. From Mullah Shakil's subsequent description of his travels through Shina country, it appears that linguistic borders are roughly paralleled by sectarian religious boundaries. In the Hunza Valley and to the west of Gilgit, the Ismailia sect predominates. In Gilgit town and Skardu district, Shias are more numerous. Astor district has a mixed Sunni Shia population, and throughout the southern flank of the Shina area, including Diamar district and Indus Khoistan, the Sunnis are greatly in the majority. Picture, please. In the same way as sectarian differences between Sunni Shia and Ismailia Shina speakers contribute to the survival of Shina's dialectal diversity, they also intensify the social and ideological separation between Gilgit and its southern neighbors. In this context, Mullah Shakil observes that although Gilgit is the largest Shina-speaking town and the center of Shina religious and intellectual life, efforts to develop a standard written form of the language are not only hindered by differences between the Gilgiti and other dialects, but also reinforced by the existing religious tensions. Nevertheless, Gilgit-Shina variety seems to be the only one that holds the potential for standardization. It possesses a vast body of oral literature, and over the last few decades, there have been many efforts at creating a written tradition as well. Moreover, Gilgit-Shina is also used by Radio Pakistan for its daily Shina language broadcasts, which are highly popular throughout the entire region. And what about mother tongue education? At least in theory, Mullah Shakil strongly supports this idea. Recently, he remarks, some local volunteers have even undergone specialized teacher training courses at the hands of an Islamabad-based NGO, which, according to his and our knowledge, is also active in Wakhi and Burushaski-speaking areas. But as most of the Gilgit trainees were Shiites, and the NGO itself is rumored to be supported by Western donors, Mullah Shakil remains rather skeptical regarding the chances of wider public support for this initiative. The next morning, we wave goodbye to energetic Gilgit and take the public bus going south. Picture, please. On our way along the Karakoram highway, right past the famous Nanga Parbat mountain, traverse Dyamar district's high altitude wasteland. Picture, please. Pass through the narrow gorges of Indus Kohistan. Picture, please. And 16 hours later, awake to the hustle and bustle of Rawalpindi. Picture, please. That's it. The mountains have changed to the plains. The northern languages have given way to Urdu and Punjabi, and I, dear travelers, return you back to your warm and cozy apartments. I hope you have enjoyed the trip. Picture, please.
Thank you very much, Matthias. I think there are questions or comments. You're welcome, colleagues. Yes, please. Andrei?
Yes, Sergey, if you don't mind.
Oh, Sergey, yes, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Weinreich, for a very illuminating talk. Actually, I have two questions. One is more academic, another one is sort of like political one. When you were talking, the first one, when you were talking about the Wakhi language, where do you place the study of the language by Grunberg and Stebling-Kamensky? And the second one, which is of more political nature, well, once I met Burish from Hunza, and surprisingly I met him in Sudan, and he told me that unlike many people in remote areas of various countries, the people of Gilgit, they don't strive for any kind of sort of separation from the host country or even level of autonomy. On the contrary, they want to be recognized as Pakistanis, the privilege which is often denied to them. Would you agree with this opinion, or would you rather say that this gentleman was absolutely wrong? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the questions. I tried to ask first the first one. About, you ask where would place the study of Stebling-Kamensky and Grunberg concerning the Wakhi language in the Pamirs, right? I would definitely place it on the top of academic achievements, not only of the Soviet Union, but of Iranian studies. So I think it's absolutely unique things. Already historically, it has an immense historical value because language is changing, and is until now it is, to my knowledge, the most extensive and the most in-depth study of Wakhi language which we have. So this is, and it was translated, as far as I remember, into English even. So
French, I think, French.
Or into French. Yeah, it was translated into one of these Western languages, and not for good reason. simply because people tend not to learn Russian anymore, and the study is definitely important for further academic pursuits on Wahi. The second, yes, I heard the same opinion many times while I was working in Gilgit in the 90s and in the 2000s. I don't know if it has changed by now, but it was very striking always to hear this. We want to be a real part of Pakistan. It had, in that time, I don't know how the situation is now. At that time, it had to do with the fact that in that time it was called northern areas, that the northern areas were not fully integrated into Pakistan. They didn't have their local government, they didn't have their local parliament, and so people felt very much left alone. I did not in that time hear any tendencies which one could call separatist. It was very much a drive towards integration into the bigger country.
Thank you.
When did you meet this gentleman in Sudan? Which year was this? Can you just interesting?
It was sort of like 5 years ago.
Okay, so it seems to have pursued. Yeah, the opinion seems to be still there.
And he hails from a pretty prominent family, sort of like hereditary wazirs of the Mir of Hunza.
Okay, but it's an opinion which is shared. In my time, it was shared by the absolute majority of people.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Any more questions or comments, colleagues?
I have one.
Yes, please. I cannot
Michael
see.
Ludwig.
It's Michael Ludwig, please.
Did you say me? This is Michael Balk from Berlin. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I would just like add a few words to Balti, because you mentioned Balti in Skaru especially. I was rather moved because in 2001, that was 20 years ago, I had the pleasure to be Hussein Abadi's pupil for about 5 weeks, reading his translation, Balti Tibetan translation of the Quran. So you said that Balti orthography is disputed. Well, the main point is that Balti is not written in the Tibetan script. It is written in the Arab script, and the main problem for writing Tibetan in this Arab script is the fact that they lump together certain other languages, for the main part Arab. The whole range of the Arab orthography is part of the Balti orthography. Then what is also added is Iranian special characters like che and so on. And you also have the retroflex sounds from the Urdu. Then on top of that comes a limited number of quite special Tibetan consonantal sounds, and that adds up to 50 consonantal characters, which are all used. And what is disputed is, as far as I can remember, only 2 or 3 special Tibetan characters. That's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your comment. Very important to give an idea. I was just saying that things are disputed. So it is exactly because the languages have sounds which are not, they do not share neither with Urdu, nor with Persian, nor with many other languages of the plains of Pakistan. So the question is always with the special signs, how we represent in an Urdu alphabet, even in a modified alphabet, how we represent these sounds. And here, mostly the people disagree.
Well, the special characters, they are noted down by critical marks, putting certain dots on top of an regular Arab letter. But I would repeat that the disputed ones is probably 2 or 3 or 4. So for the main body of the alphabet, it works quite nicely. I mean, Hussein Abadi has written a Tibetan version of the whole Quran, which is a big book. So I would say for the main part, it works pretty well. And I was also told that people who work for the radio, for the Balti program in the Pakistani radio, they make their scripts in Balti, and that's easy for them. It works very well. It's not a real problem, I would say.
Well, yes, it's not a real problem from our point of view, but as we say that the detail, the devil is in the detail, and here this devil seems to disunite people, unfortunately. So on the other hand, of course, it is not so many speakers of these languages, it is not of a priority to have their language written. I hinted at it already in the presentation. People simply see their language as the language of home, but the language their children should actually learn, at least writing, they should learn it in written. This is Urdu, or for the better off families, this is English. These are the two languages with which you make career in Pakistan. With Balti, nobody will earn much. Outside of Baltistan, even less.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think Zubair Torwali also has a question or comment.
Hello, this is Zubair Torwali. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, this is Zubair Torwali in the Swat Valley, Bahrain, Swat. So with my mother tongue, Torwali, one of the Dardic languages spoken in northern Pakistan. So a very enlightening speech by Matthias. I think you have covered many things. As for the the disputed characters concerned in Wakhi or in Balti. So in northern Pakistan, all of the languages use some special characters which range from 3 to 6 in numbers, and which are very different from Urdu, from Punjabi, from other languages spoken in the plain. And Balti has also these sounds may be taken from the neighboring Dardic languages. I don't know. But only the disputed characters are only found in Balti because they use two types of scripts. One of the Urdu-based script and the other Tibetan. Another one, the Wakhi, is also there is a dispute among the Wakhi people about the script. Some people favor the Cyrillic characters. Others favor the Urdu-based. And Brusheski, there is another. There are some few people. They also want to have some Romanized script for their language, but the Urdu-based script is in use over there. So these 3 to 6 characters, we for instance, for Torwali, for Shina, for Koar, so they have developed special characters, special symbols for these sounds. For instance, sha, ra, tra, la. So for 4 dots above sin, 4 dots above ra, 4 dots inside ha. So they represent some of these special sounds with these special special making of the characters. But you know that most of the Balti people, they use the Urdu-based script, and same is with Wakhi people and Brusheski also. Recently, the government of Gilgit-Baltistan tried to develop some script, basic alphabet books for Wakhi for Brushevsky and for Sheena. And the Wakhi and Brushevsky people, some of the, the progressive elements inside the communities, they don't agree to the Urdu-based script. So that was a point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Zubair. Thank you. Very kind of you. You're giving your input from far away Swat, very relevant. And I must admit that your internet connection is far better than the one which Michael had from Berlin. Just amazing. And that the activists do not agree with the publication again underlines the point that the devil is in the detail, and unfortunately it will take a long time probably before these languages will finally have unified alphabets, and even longer time, I suppose, before they will be taught in school and people will be interested to send their children to these classes. Yeah, thank you again, Zubair. Thank you.
Thank you. I think Sergey has something to add as well. Please.
Yes, thank you for giving me the second opportunity to ask a question. It looks like I'm constantly wearing of the main subject of your talk, which is basically languages. My question is of historical nature now. When you were traveling in the area, have you encountered any sort of historical recollection of this Russian Captain Gromchevsky visit to the area? Gromchevsky was one of the first European explorers of the region, and as we all know, he secured the request from the mayor of Kanju for the protection of the Russian Empire, which was wisely refused by the St. Petersburg authorities. So have you came across any sort of traces of this great captain of the 19th century? Thank you.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Interestingly enough, I was collecting oral histories, and I was very much interested in stories about people's forefathers or foremothers, and well, best of all cases, people could go back for their own family history, like 2-3 generations, old people. And then it stopped. Basically, let's say beginning of the 19th, first third of the 20th century. Of course, you have written records. So probably your knowledge comes from one of these written records. But all what is older than that, it's or you have some what would call archaeological remains, which are very difficult to date, or you will have the graves in the non-Muslim cemetery, the so-called British cemetery in Gilgit, where you have the graves of some of the explorers who didn't make it alive out of the area, and some of the British officials. But luckily, Mr. Grombochevsky was not among these people, and his gravestone is probably in another place. No recollections, whatever, from that time.
Yes, his grave is actually in Warsaw because he was an ethnic Pole in Russian service. And you're absolutely right when you said that it's basically family history, family oral history, because this gentleman from Hunza, whom I was talking earlier, he still keeps in his family possession the rifle which was given to his ancestor by Captain Gromchevsky. And accidentally, it's a historical anecdote which I particularly like. The rifle was used to kill a British colonel in command of the British invading force when the British Empire invaded the area. And yes, and Gromchevsky travelogue is kept in the archive of the Russian Geographical Society in St. Petersburg, and the book on his explorers was recently published, which is called Dervish Gindukush, a rather catchy title, which is not exactly doing justice to this great explorer, but quite interesting. Well, sorry for taking you off the well-trodden track of your very interesting topical talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Very, very interesting. I didn't know about the fact that the book was published recently. I would be very interested in this book.
Thank you, colleagues. Matthias Weinreich has a question, I think. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. A very short remark and one very short question. Regarding Gromczewski, my teacher of Pashto language, Jadwiga Pstrusińska, traveled to this part of Pakistan in 1970s, and she was also trying to find any traces of Gromczewski or any traces of memory regarding Gromczewski visit there, but she wasn't able to do that. And my question is, Matthias, you may have talked about this, but I missed to mention. Could you please say a few words about when you collected your data, how did you do that, and under what conditions? Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for the question. I will try to keep the answer short. Most of the time I spent there, it was from 93 to 97, and then I spent some less time in the 2000s. I was based in Gilgit. I was going around in all the northern areas. My primary interest in that time was Pashto, and very soon it also became Domaki. I mentioned this small language in my presentation. And of course, as a linguist, I was interested in all the languages, the other languages spoken in the area. It was a very different time from now, I suppose. I don't know. I could travel freely. There was no security concerns. At least we didn't think about this. I was always welcome. I was part of a German Pakistani project, so my colleagues were always welcome. I started working for Pashto with recordings. I was making audio recordings. Yeah, this is probably the only kind of strange thing which happened security-wise, that I was made understood by my informants that it's better not to record. So I was then just working with a pen. And there were kind of suspicions, rumors going around in the bazaar that this German Pakistani project, we are spies, and so on and so on. So I don't know how much this was true for my colleagues. It wasn't for me. This much I can say. Otherwise, I would have a different job now, probably. Yes, this was the only kind of strange thing which happened. So, but I could, for example, make recordings for Domaki, and there was no concern from the Domaki speakers on that. Yeah, this is kind of in a nutshell the time how it was then for field studies.
Thank you. As I see, Zubair left the meeting, but he left a note. It is a web-based magazine on northern Pakistan. Hopefully it will open.
We Mountains, it's called.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent.
Any more remarks, questions? Okay, if we have no more. Yes, Matthias, please.
Yes, I'm here in the chat. I'm writing my email address. So if somebody's interested in a written copy of my presentation, please just write to this email. That's my email, my private email. So I will be happy to send you a written copy. This is from my side.
Thank you. So we are coming to the very end, and I would like to once more express my gratitude to, first of all, Matthias for his fascinating talk, for the very interesting subject of his lecture, to all the colleagues who joined us today, to Tsovinar particularly, who helped us with the technical side. And I would like to say that we have decided not to restrict ourselves with the 25th anniversary of Iran and the Caucasus, but to continue our series of lectures in 2022. and we have discussed the project with several colleagues, and we hope to have lectures of Martin Schwarz. I hope Desmond Durkin Meisterlens and other colleagues, and I hope to see you as often as possible. At least I will try to arrange as many lectures as possible, and to have this seminar it's kind of a permanent base for our meetings, academic talks, discussions. I will be happy to invite all of you to join the project as lecturers, as listeners. So I wonder if I have to also leave my email in the chat, and we'll be happy to answer all your questions concerning this project. Thank you, Matthias, once more. It was really a pleasure to at least listen to your voice. Unfortunately, we cannot see you. And if anybody would like to add anything, you are absolutely welcome.
Thanks very much, Matthias, and thank you, Victoria, for saying that you were going to ask me. So, okay, I'm ready.
Very good. I'm very happy to hear that. Thank you. Desmond.
Okay. Yes, so I'm taking the last word now. Is this okay? Yes, again, well, the last word, of course, is again, thank you to everybody. Thank you for you coming and listening to the presentation. Special thank you to Zovinar and to Victoria for all the preparations and the technical details we are going through. And thank you to Garnik for keeping together with Vika alive Iran and Caucasus for 25 years. So may it continue. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. As always, this lecture is recorded, and those who couldn't join us, or those who would like to listen to it again, can find it in a free access on our site. I mean, the site of the Institute of Oriental Studies, Russian Armenian University. Thank you once more, and all the best.
Goodbye. All the best.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much, Matthias.